At 17, Luke Littler became the youngest darts world champion in history. That feels impossible, right? But here's the brutal truth. What looks like overnight success wasn't overnight at all. Years before Ali Pali, he had already lifted senior trophies, like winning the Irish Open at just 14. From the JDC to the Premier League, Littler had been dismantling opponents long before most people noticed. The shock isn't that he won, it's that so many ignored the signs. Over the next few minutes, we'll show you the moments most fans missed and why those 66-1 odds never told the real story. Imagine looking at a betting board and seeing a teenager listed at 66-1. That's how most fans were introduced to Luke Littler at the 2024 World Championship. Those numbers weren't commenting on his ability, they were commenting on his obscurity. To bookmakers, he was just a 16-year-old qualifier without any major TV highlights, so they lumped him with the long shots. To casual fans scanning the draw, 16 years old looked like a novelty slot rather than a threat. But anyone who had watched him tear through youth and open events knew that the markets were mispricing his form because his best performances had happened off-camera. Going into the 2024 tournament, the board looked predictable. Favourites like Michael van Gerwen and Luke Humphries on short odds, solid top 10 names at middling prices, and a row of distant long shots. Littler, despite having won 5 Development Tour titles in 2023, was buried in that final group because he had earned his place via the Development Tour Order of Merit, not via high-profile televised wins. It was a classic visibility trap. In darts, titles from the JDC Development Tour, or WDF, count for ranking points, but if there isn't a broadcast highlight package, the general public never sees them. Littler's averages were already approaching those of seasoned pros, and he regularly beat adults in senior tournaments. Yet only die-hard fans knew. Bookmakers responded with odds that priced his exposure rather than his talent. Inside the game, the blind spot was glaring. Coaches and former pros watching the Modus Super Series streams knew he could produce 100-plus averages under pressure and had the composure of a much older player. So when the 66-1 lineup went, insiders rolled their eyes. The odds underlined how far behind mainstream perception had become. Once the tournament started, that underestimation became the narrative hook. Instead of talking about a proven junior champion executing the next logical step in his development, commentators framed each win as a shock from a teenage outsider. Fans bought it, the press amplified it, and Littler mania took off because the betting price made every victory sound like a miracle. Ironically, without that inflated line, the underdog story might not have caught fire. The 66-1 tag gave weight to the drama, making each win feel like a bigger upset than it really was. The markets weren't wrong because Luke produced a once-in-a-lifetime run. He'd been clocking record scores, reaching youth finals and beating senior players for years. They were wrong because most people weren't paying attention when the groundwork was being laid. And if they missed that, it's worth asking, what else did they overlook? Most sports fans can't imagine a 14-year-old conquering adults in a ranked professional event, but that's exactly what happened at the 2021 Irish Open. While his classmates were focused on exams, Luke Littler travelled to Kilkenny and dominated a field of seasoned men, dropping no more than 2 legs in any match. In the final, he faced Barry Copeland, a long-time Northern Ireland international, and blew him away 6-2 with a scoring power that belied his age. That win made him the youngest ever winner of a World Darts Federation event and earned him a golden ticket to the 2022 WDF World Championship. He even dedicated the victory to Kath Cairns, the late mother of fellow youth player Eleanor Cairns, who used to ferry him to tournaments, a poignant moment that never made mainstream headlines. The Irish Open isn't some local youth festival. It attracts players in their 20s, 30s and beyond from across Europe. Winning it required stamina, concentration and the ability to adjust to different playing styles over a long day, a challenge that often trips up young talents. Littler passed the test with ease. Beating Copeland and a string of experienced opponents, he proved he wasn't just an advanced junior. He had already crossed the line into adult competition. Yet outside of darts circles, the moment barely registered. In tennis, a 15-year-old winning a pro match makes global news. In chess, a teenage grandmaster is celebrated. Littler's breakthrough was filed away quietly, noticed only by diehards and a handful of regional reporters. It's important to understand who he beat and what it signified. Copeland had been part of the WDF circuit for years. Littler dispatched him without showing nerves. Insiders saw the final as proof that the divide between youth darts and men's competition no longer applied to him. Off-camera, he had been winning youth titles that mirror senior match play pressure, from JDC events to European Youth Championships. Those experiences taught him to handle long formats, switchboard strategies, and the mental grind of tournament play. By the time he stepped onto the Irish Open stage, winning was the next logical step. Viewed in hindsight, the Irish Open is the true beginning of Littler's adult career. It gave him a direct route into the WDF World Championship, where he went on to become the youngest player ever to win a match at a senior world championship. It also showed that his scoring and finishing translated seamlessly from junior to senior levels. That early proof matters because smooth transitions between youth and adult titles are rare in darts. For Littler, the question was answered at 14. The context sharpens the contrast with how his later achievements were framed. When he reached the 2024 PDC World Championship final, the story exploded worldwide, even before he lifted a major trophy, while his first senior milestone was virtually ignored. That oversight fuels the central theme of this video. By the time the world discovered Luke Littler, he had already proven himself against adults and laid the groundwork for everything that came next. In the following section, we'll explore how he moved from that first senior title to the sport's biggest arena. For most pros, the road to Alexandra Palace is a long haul through multiple tours and ranking systems. Littler took that same road, but at warp speed. He didn't receive a wild card. He earned his spot at the 2024 PDC World Championship by finishing near the top of the Development Tour Order of Merit. That detail matters because it means his ticket to Ali Pali was stamped through results, not publicity. In other words, this was a teenager who hacked the system by beating it at its own game. Lay out his progression like a straight line. Junior Darts Corporation events taught him to handle match play pressure. The World Darts Federation circuit exposed him to international opponents and longer formats. The Modus Super Series gave him live cameras and a streaming audience, and the PDC Development Tour sharpened his weekly consistency. He didn't skip any rungs on the ladder, he just climbed them faster than anyone expected. In 2022, he became the youngest player to win a match at the WDF World Championship. Then in 2023, he captured 2 seasons of the Modus Super Series, playing under TV-style lights and commentary. Each step hardened his nerves and built the muscle memory needed for the sport's biggest stages. By 2023, everything aligned on the development tour. Littler didn't just pop up and win once, he captured 5 titles in a single season, finishing high enough on the Order of Merit to guarantee his place at Ali Pali. For context, the development tour is brutally competitive. Many future PDC pros learn their trade there. It's designed to expose inconsistency because players have to perform week after week to earn points. Littler's dominance signaled that he wasn't just peaking, he was sustainable. That's Shark Tank-style execution. He had a clear plan and hit every milestone ahead of schedule. The rapid climb can feel like a fairy tale because of his age, but structurally, he did exactly what every professional must. Junior players progressed through youth tours, then the WDF and development tour circuits, and finally into the PDC once they accumulate enough ranking points. Littler simply compressed a process that often takes half a decade into 2 spectacular seasons. Nothing was gifted, nothing was skipped. That's why calling his debut a fluke misses the point. He followed the blueprint, he just did it faster and more efficiently than anyone had seen before. So when he walked into Alexandra Palace in December 2023, the groundwork was already locked in. Fans at home may have just learned his name, but in terms of the sports pipeline, he was exactly where his record said he should be. The question was no longer whether he belonged, it was how his honed skills would stand up against world champions with decades of experience. That cliffhanger set up the drama of his debut run and made his subsequent victories feel like a startup disrupting a legacy market. On the World Championship stage, reputations are built by the scalps you collect. Littler's route to his first final wasn't padded with journeymen, it ran through legends. He dismantled five-time world champion Raymond van Barneveld 4-1 in the fourth round, and then thrashed 2018 champion Rob Cross 6-2 in the semi-final. At just 16 years and 347 days old, he became the youngest player ever to reach a PDC World Championship final. But the record book doesn't tell the whole story. Start with the Van Barneveld match. Barney isn't just a familiar name, he's one of dart's few multi-code champions, a five-time world title holder who has carried Dutch darts for decades. Beating him once is a career highlight for most professionals. Littler did it on his World Championship debut with a scoreline that looked routine rather than miraculous. He averaged over 105, hit 9 180s, and closed out sets without flinching. Van Barneveld's strengths, timing, experience, stage presence were neutralized by straight scoring power and unshakable composure. Fans expected nerves to creep in, but Littler's rhythm never broke. His averages would have been respectable in any quarterfinal. Then came Rob Cross. This was no faded name resting on past glory. Cross lifted the world title in 2018, beating Phil Taylor, and has remained a fixture at the top of the game. Yet in the semi-final, Littler outscored him, outfinished him, and won 6-2. There were no lucky breaks or opponent collapses, just a teenager dictating the pace and draining doubles with the confidence of a veteran. That performance shattered any lingering idea that his run was a novelty. When you beat a recent world champion who is still near his peak, it stops being an upset and becomes a statement. These two victories changed the atmosphere inside Alexandra Palace. Early on, the crowd watched with curiosity, but as Littler piled up 180s and calmly collected his darts, disbelief gave way to awe. Commentators noted his body language, calm, measured, and unaffected by the roars around him. That control, more than his age, became the shorthand for his emergence. No teenager had ever knocked out two former world champions in a single run to the final. Littler didn't sneak through a soft draw, he cut through names that defined the last decade of darts. Beating champions is the clearest proof of belonging at the top. By the time he walked onto the stage for the final, he wasn't a fluke qualifier or a feel-good story. He was a genuine contender who had earned his place by taking down giants. And that leads to the question the darts world had to confront. With performances like these, was he ever truly an underdog? Littler's ascent is no accident, nor is it a fleeting burst of form. He won a senior title at 14, methodically climbed the JDC, WDF and Development Tour ladders to qualify for the 2024 PDC World Championship. Took out world champions Raymond van Barneveld and Rob Cross to become the youngest finalist, and then returned a year later to beat Michael van Gerwen 7-3 and lift the Sid Waddle Trophy at just 17. Along the way, he added major titles like the Premier League, Grand Slam, World Series Finals, UK Open and World Match Play, cementing himself as a generational talent rather than a novelty. The question now is how far that foundation will take him. He already holds the PDC Triple Crown and sits at world number 2. Does he have the makings of a long-term dynasty, or will the field close the gap as his rivals adapt? What aspects of his game, his rapid throw, his heavy scoring, or his ice-cold finishing would you borrow for your own approach? Let us know in the comments, and if you want deeper dives into the sport's biggest stories, be sure to hit subscribe.